Hi guys, so today we're going to just take a minute to step back and review fraction operations. Now I know you know how to add and subtract fractions and multiply and divide fractions, but I just thought it was a good idea for us to review it quickly. So you have some note sheets. You can feel free to take your own or to use the note sheets, but I'm going to review fraction operations. So first we're going to look at addition and subtraction. All right, so now remember, we always have to follow proper order of operations no matter what with fractions. It's the same as with integers. But in order to add and subtract fractions, you need a common denominator. So let's remember that the top of our fraction is called the numerator, the bottom is the denominator, and in order to add the fractions, the denominators must be the same. If they are the same, then all you have to do is add the numerators and keep the denominator. So this would work out to be 5/7. But what if they're not the same? If they're not the same, you have to make the denominators the same by multiplying by whatever's missing to make them the same. So you have to look for the lowest common denominator, the LCD. So you're looking for the number that 8 and 6, the lowest number that 8 and 6 both are factors of, or go into. So in this case, it would be 24. Okay, so the LCD would be 24. All right, so to make 8 24, you'd need to multiply it by 3. But you have to do it to both the top and the bottom of the fraction. And the 6, to make it 24, you'd multiply it by 4. So you'd have to multiply it to the top and the bottom of the fraction. All right, so then we do 3 times 3, which gives me 9 all over 24. And then 4 times 1, which gives me 4 over 24. And then you add the numerators and keep the denominator, which is going to give me, 13 over 24. Now, if you could simplify, you'd want to simplify that, but you're unable to simplify that. All right, then we throw in mixed numbers. Well, with addition, mixed numbers doesn't have to be that hard. It's subtraction that we have to worry about. All right, so here we've got adding mixed numbers. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to add the 6 and the 9 because those are whole numbers. So that's going to give me 15. Then I'm going to do 3/4 plus 5/8. So I'm going to add the fractional parts. Now, I need a common denominator, so I'm going to multiply this by 2 over 2. And that's going to give me 6 over 8 plus 5 over 8, which gives me 11 over 8. The problem is that 11 over 8 is bigger than 1. So I'm going to turn that into a mixed number. So 8 goes into 11 one time, and you're left with 3. So 8 over 11 becomes 1 and 3/8. But I had that 15 that I have to deal with. So I now need to add that whole number 1 to the 15, and so my answer would be 16 and 3/8. Now, you could have turned these into improper fractions and then found a common denominator, but that would have given you very large numbers. So I find this technique's a little bit easier than doing that. All right, so I'm going to ask you to try number 4, okay? And we will go over that tomorrow in class when I'm back. All right, so now we've got subtraction. So the same rules apply. When you subtract fractions, you need a common denominator. So, for example, on this side, the LCD, the lowest common denominator would be 10. So I'm going to multiply the 3 and the 5 by 2 so that the denominator becomes 10. Okay, so that gives me 7 over 10 minus 6 over 10. All right, denominators are the same, so add the numerators, keep the denominators, but in this case it's subtraction, so it's going to be 7 minus 6 over 10, which is 1/10. Okay? All right. Harder. Okay? 5 and 1/8 minus 2 and 7/12. Now, earlier I showed you that you could deal with the whole numbers first, and there are 2 methods that you can do. 2 methods. The first method would be to turn them into improper fractions. So we're going to try that first, okay? So that's going to be 8 times 5, which is 40, plus 1. So remember, we times and we add. So that gives me 41 over 8. And then on the other side, you do the same thing. 12 times 2 is 24. 24 plus 7 is 31 over 12. Is that right? 24 and 7. Yes, so 31 over 12. Okay, now you'd need a common denominator, which in this case is 24. So my LCD is 24. So you'd have to multiply this side by 3 over 3 to make that 8 a 24, and this side by 2 over 2. All right, so that's going to give me 123 over 24 minus 62 over 24. All right, then I subtract and I get 61 over 24, which is an improper fraction. So now I'm going to change that to a mixed number. So I divide 24 into 61. 24 goes into 61 2 times, and I'm left with 13. So 13 over 24. Okay. Now, the other method I'm going to review in class because it's a little bit different, and I want to make sure you understand it. Okay. All right, so now we're going to move on to the next page. You'll see that I left 7 and 8 blank. We're going to do those in class tomorrow. I want us to go to multiplying fractions. All right, so the best way and the easiest way and the most efficient way, is which is always the way we want to do our math, is to simplify if you can before you multiply. So here's our first example, 3/4 times 2/4. Well, I notice that 2 actually goes into 4 here, or 2 goes into 4 right up and down. I can simplify. 2 goes into itself 1 time, 2 goes into 4 2 times. That gives me 3 over 2 times 1 over 4. Now I multiply across. You don't need a common denominator to multiply and divide fractions. You just multiply the tops, so 3 times 1 is 3. You multiply the bottoms, 2 times 4 is 8. Now, if you simplify before you multiply, then your answer should be in lowest form if you simplified as much as you can. All right, let's look at this next one. 5/8 times a whole number, 18. All right, we're going to first write that 18 over 1. Then we're going to simplify before we multiply. And I see that 8 and 18 have a common factor of a 2. So I'm going to simplify. 2 goes into 8 4 times. 2 goes into 18 9 times. And then we multiply the numerators, multiply the denominators. So 5 times 9 gives me 45, and 4 times 1 gives me 4. All right, so 45 over 4, if I turn that into a mixed number, 4 goes into 45 11 times. That gives me 44, and I'm left with 1. So 11 and 1/4. Okay, a little bit more challenging when I give you improper. Or mixed numbers, because you cannot multiply 4 times 3. No, can't do that. I have to turn them into improper fractions. So I'm going to do 4 times 5 plus 1, which is 21 over 5. And then 7 times 3 is 21, plus 5 is 26 over 7. Now this is a great place to simplify before we multiply. I see that 7 goes into itself once, and goes into 21 3 times. That's just making these numbers so much easier to work with, guys. All right, so 3 times 26 is, let's see, 78 over 5. So 78 over 5, and yes, you could turn that into a mixed number, or you could leave it as an improper fraction. A few more. 5 over 11 times 11 divided by 12. Well, I love this one because these 11s, they have a common factor of 11, so they simplify to 1. So there's my answer would be just 5 over 12. All right, so that's multiplication. How's division different? So remember, last week we said that division really means, like if I say 2 over 5, it's asking how many times does 5 go into 2? And so one of the things we talked about is what happens when you are dividing fractions. How many times does 9/7 go into 3 halves? And we came up with a technique that we liked. It was the pattern that kept happening. We keep 3 halves, we change division to multiplication, and we flip the denominator. So when we're dividing fractions, we want to keep, change, flip. We want to Kentucky chicken fry it. All right, so now we've made it a multiplication problem. We simplify. 3 goes into 9 3 times, and then we multiply across. So we get 7 6. hopefully that you guys remember that. All right, last one I want to look at is number 8, okay? So 3 divided by 2 1/8. So now I have this mixed number. So yes, you do have to turn 2 1/8 into an improper fraction. So that's 17/8. Process is still the same. We're dividing fractions. Even though this is 3, you could easily write it as 3/1. So we keep, we change, and we flip. So 3 times 8/17. Now, there's no place for me to simplify here, so I just multiply across. So 24/17. All right, guys, thanks for your patience today. Hopefully that was all like review of what you remembered about fractions, just to get it in our brain again. And that's it. Have a great day.